I am 26 years old and my partner is 26 years old. She is my first and only girlfriend, and I'm her first and only boyfriend. We've been together since we were 18. She grew up strict Muslim, and I grew up strict Mormon. I went through a terrible depression when I was a teenager and nearly lost my life to unalived. I never got a normal or healthy high school experience of social exploration, and the few girls that I kissed or had things with always got scared away by my obvious desperation and pain. This was always hard because I am a handsome person, but I was never able to use it for any real connection. Finally, at age 16, after the depression got really bad, I was sent to residential treatment for 14 months, confined and alone in a high-security boys' home. Although the place was excruciatingly difficult to be in, I healed a lot through therapy and journaling, and by the time I got back to the real world as an 18-year-old, I had confidence, hope, and tenacity for the first time in my life. 6 months after I returned, I met my girlfriend. I was back for a final year of high school after treatment and felt entirely alienated from the rest of my classmates because of my experiences. I looked around me and saw for the first time how emotionally immature most people were, and that my painful childhood had actually led me to a deeper emotional maturity. In the wake of all I had survived, I met my partner working at a pizza shop. We were co-workers. She was 18 and in college, only about 5 months older than me. From the second I met her, she seemed so different than everyone else. There was none of the ignorance I saw in so many privileged white girls and guys, but a deep and genuine acceptance of life. We started making out, and I felt really conflicted about wanting to date or not. I felt like I needed more time to process everything that had happened, more time to develop a healthy sense of self. I was still struggling with depression, but with much healthier coping mechanisms. But after 3 dates with her, I felt suddenly like I had known her my entire life. There was something about her that felt like cosmic significance. I was no longer Mormon at that point, but during treatment, I had several intense spiritual experiences that felt like the universe was reaching out to me and letting me know I wasn't alone. I began to feel that with her, that we were meant to meet. I told her I was ready to be official, and it's been almost 8 years now with no breaks. I am an avid journaler, having journaled almost every day since 2015 when I went to treatment. I can look back in my journal and see the moment I met my girlfriend. Everything changed. My words suddenly lose weight to them. Suddenly, I'm making jokes, having adventures, and acting like a kid again for the first time in 7 years of depression. She changed my life. I brought her all of me, all the pain and darkness and despair, having felt alone my entire life, and she accepted me fully. It is the single greatest act of love I have ever experienced, and it changed my life. This has not changed for the 8 years we've stayed together. She has always been in my corner, supporting me in a way that has allowed me to grow in ways I never could have imagined. I've traveled to 10 countries with her, road tripped across the United States, backpacked South America for 9 months, skydived, got scuba certified, sold my art and poetry, and graduated with a degree in psychology, all with her by my side. It's been a good life, and I know we would die for each other. Most people wonder why we haven't gotten married. I see her as the future mother of my kids and my not-too-distant future wife. The only thing stopping me is my crippling trauma-based fear of losing my freedom. When I was a child, my parents thought I had special needs due to behavior outbursts and sent me every day for 9 months to a special needs school where I was treated very poorly, not abused physically, but emotionally. A child psychologist noticed that after I returned from the school at age 5, I wasn't the same. I had developed an extremely anxious attachment style to my mom, terrified of leaving her, terrified of being left alone. Something in that school traumatized me and led to an immense fear of abandonment. My life went okay as a kid until I became a real teenager, and then that early trauma became a furious depression that isolated me and drew me to hate myself. I've learned a lot about attachment styles, the effect of trauma, major and minor, on the brain, epigenetics, generational transmission, executive dysfunction, etc. I'm pretty aware of the forces that have shaped my personality and behavior. It is through this awareness and a lot of hard work that I was able to heal from the past and live what I consider to be an incredible life. I've used my experiences with mental illness to create meaningful things and support many people with their own challenges. During my peak, I felt like a genuine healer, like my life was a movie, and I was the luckiest man in the world to have gone through what I did and to have found such truth in the darkness. But the thing is, there's still darkness in me. Once I graduated college and went backpacking in South America with my girlfriend, a lot of things began to reemerge from the past. All throughout college, as I healed, I began to feel a terrible paradox in my life. For the first time ever, I was healthy and happy. I was handsome and in good shape from the gym. I was in my early 20s and full of energy. For the first time ever, really attractive girls started giving me serious attention. My girlfriend and I did long distance the entire time I was in college. She lived 4 hours away and we visited often, but to my benefit, I got the chance to be fully independent and still have someone to love me. However, during college, it became very difficult to not fantasize about being single and exploring my youth now that I was finally doing okay. In a way, I realized I could have the high school experience I always wanted but never could have. I felt it there, gnawing at me, all the potential of self-exploration. Despite all I have done, I still feel that feeling. My girlfriend and I were virgins when we met, and we lost our virginity together. I have never cheated on her, and we have stayed loyal to each other. Despite it all, I still feel incredibly lost sometimes. There's still a part of me that is very much unhealed and craving validation. I'm going to go to therapy again and try eye movement desensitization and reprocessing for it in a month, because after 8 years, I still find myself fantasizing about being single. There is nothing malignant about these feelings. I love my girlfriend. I believe they are based on the interaction of two strong forces. Number 1, anxious attachment, which drives the need for societal validation and intimacy gratification. Studies have shown that anxiously attached people are prone to hypersexuality and addiction. And number 2, being young and full of energy. I don't want to be this way, but there is a part of me that is. After all the healing I've done, I return to the attachment and relationship pain again and again and again. A voice in my head says, maybe I never got to fully develop a healthy individuality since I met my girlfriend right as I returned from treatment and have literally grown up with only her. Another voice says all this pain would go away if I just used my skills and drive from adventure to solo travel the world, having whatever experiences I need, relational or otherwise. Another voice tells me that I'll never find someone like her, and that the universe threw me a bone, a shortcut to a happy life with someone that understands after no one else ever did, and that losing a pure soul like her would be supremely painful and ignorant. I am faced with a painful choice: lose the chance of ever knowing myself outside the relationship and being truly independent for the first time in my life, or sacrificing a lifelong relationship with the best person I've ever met and most likely the love of my life. Any advice? Now, for a few comments before the update. Well, actually, this post didn't have any comments. Now for the update. 2 days after the last post, I met up with Olivia at our favorite diner to talk things over. So you know the place. It's got like the best pancakes ever, but honestly, we barely touched our food. I could tell Olivia was like really upset, and honestly, she was avoiding eye contact the whole time, just staring at her coffee like it had the answers. We ordered our usual breakfast, but barely touched our food. She suddenly brought up my past and how my struggles affected our relationship. I mentioned wanting to explore who I am outside of our relationship. Olivia was listening, but seemed to think I was pushing her away. She accused me of wanting to be single and experiencing life without her. I denied that, trying to explain it was about self-discovery, not about her. She abruptly stood up and left, leaving me to pay the bill alone. The next day, I got a text from Olivia saying she needed space. A few days later, I went to my family's Easter dinner. My parents were so excited to see me, and I tried to put on a brave face and fake a smile, but honestly, I was a mess. During dinner, my dad asked about my career aspirations, which felt like a loaded question. I mean, come on, I just got out of therapy. Give me a break. I deflected, saying I was focusing on my personal growth. Then my younger sister Kate asked if I was still with Olivia, and I felt super uneasy. I changed the subject, but my mom kept pressing for details about my relationship. All I wanted was to eat my ham and get out of there. Later, while cleaning up, I overheard my parents discussing my situation in the other room. They were worried about me, saying my relationship was affecting my life choices. After dinner, I stepped outside for fresh air, and my brother Jake joined me. He said he had a conversation with Olivia's family, who were worried about her. They felt I was a bad influence, making her question her own path. I was like, "What the hell, Jake?" I confronted him about getting involved. He insisted it was out of concern, but I felt so betrayed by both families. I decided to reach out to Olivia to clear things up. I texted her, asking to meet in a neutral place to talk. She agreed, and we met at a local coffee shop later that week. The atmosphere was tense, and we both struggled to find the right words. Olivia mentioned feeling pressured by our families, which surprised me. I expressed my frustration over Jake's interference and how it complicated things. She said she felt torn between her family's expectations and her love for me. We discussed our future and what we wanted, but we didn't reach an agreement. Just as things seemed to improve, Olivia got a phone call and stepped outside to take it. When she returned, she looked pale and said her family wanted her to visit them immediately. She explained they were planning a big family celebration, and she felt obligated to attend. As we parted ways, she mentioned needing to think about everything. Days passed without much communication, and I kept replaying our last conversation. The stress of our relationship weighed heavily on me as I prepared for my upcoming therapy session. I knew I had to confront the reality of our situation, especially with Olivia's family pressures looming large. Mini update. After my last therapy session, I realized I needed to take a step back and let Olivia figure things out on her end. I texted her, suggesting we take a break from our relationship to focus on ourselves. She replied, saying it might be the right thing to do. Am I the idiot for confronting my boyfriend about prioritizing his family over me? My boyfriend, who is 34 years old, and I have been together for over 2 years and are considering engagement and marriage in the next year. We both have siblings and are close to our families. Overall, our relationship has been wonderful, and he is kind, caring, responsible, and many other positive things. There is really only one concern I have about marriage, which is his relationship with his family. When we lived apart, it wasn't much of an issue, but since we've moved in together, I've realized that their relationship is on the edge of overbearing. His mom, who has been divorced since they were children, calls him about everything and needs a lot of emotional support from him. She wants to go on trips with him, and from what I've heard, he's been on some trips just with her since his sister got married. We went on a brief day trip together once, and he was more attentive to his mom than he was to me, but I brushed it off since I can manage myself, such as putting on gear to scuba dive, whereas she needed help. Something that may seem trivial but is worth mentioning is that he will always say, "I love you," first to her when they hang up on the phone, but he has actually never said it first to me when we hang up on the phone. He expresses his love to me in other ways, so I'm not overly concerned about it. It's just something I have found interesting. Previously, none of these things bothered me, but now I'm worried about how involved she will be if we get married. I want to build our own family with the confidence that he will prioritize the needs of our nuclear family, especially once we have children. He also talks on the phone with his sister at least once a week, excluding consistent texting during the week, if not more often for long stretches of time when we are together. Whenever I call my parents or siblings, I try to do it while he is out with friends, but he'll just call her when we're walking to the grocery store, and then I'm just there walking next to him as he talks on the phone. His sister, who is 32 years old, is a very assertive character, but I do like her and know she likes me. She has been married for a few years and just had her first child recently. It is very clear that she wears the pants in the relationship. I think, due to the fact that she grew up without a father figure, she has had experiences where she has had to fend for herself and is very blunt. My boyfriend is really proud of her in many different ways and makes this very clear by talking about her a lot. He has made comments like, "She's not like the other girls, she doesn't ever play mind games, and she knows what she wants." And occasionally, I feel like he would love to find someone with the same personality as her. What bothers me, though, is that if I treated my boyfriend the way his sister treats her husband, who is also 34 years old, there is no way we would be together for more than a month. There is no way my boyfriend would put up with that type of treatment, as she tends to order him around and cuts him off. My boyfriend calls his sister for input on almost all big decisions because he says she is a voice of reason due to her bluntness. And it worries me that she is going to have a say or be consulted on our future decisions as well. On her birthday this past week, he also bought her a gift that was much more expensive, approximately 2.5 to 3 times the price than anything he has ever gotten me. I initially didn't see an issue with this, as she is his sister, but it also makes me wonder how he will prioritize his family versus me and our future family from a financial standpoint. To add, if it were any other topic, I would have no problem having a candid and open conversation with him. However, it has been clear that any sort of comment that might be even slightly negative toward his family will not go over well. I once made a slight comment about the reason his mom got divorced, saying both parties have responsibility, and he became upset, insisting that his mom was clearly the victim in that situation. It is very important that we have this conversation about family boundaries, especially given that we are thinking about marriage. How do I frame this conversation without feeling like I am criticizing him or his family? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. My now husband was like this with his mom the first couple of years we were together. I left for a couple of months while we were still dating because I couldn't stand to keep being the second woman in his life. It's taken another 2.5 years for us to get in a semi-healthy place in our relationship in regard to his relationship with his mom. But it's been painful. It was hands down emotional inbreeding. She relied on him for all of her emotional needs. He would take her side anytime I was upset with her for valid reasons. All I can say is, you already see the writing on the wall, and it won't get better because he doesn't think there is anything wrong with their relationship. Everyone deserves to be number one in their significant other's life. Comment 2. I don't think his relationship with his family members will change even if you talk to him about it because of how long-standing the bond is, and they all seem happy with the way things are. If somehow you are assertive enough to get him to distance himself, I can see there being a lot of resentment towards you on all sides. It's possible you could start the conversation and he would agree with you that the enmeshment is too deep and make steps to change it, but that seems unlikely. If the conversation does not go well and he affirms that they will always be a priority, sometimes over you, then you have to figure out if that is how you want your life to look or not. Now for the update. 2 weeks after I cautiously brought up the family dynamics to my boyfriend, I finally decided to have a serious chat about it. We had been living in this weird tension bubble, and I couldn't take it anymore. So I planned a dinner at our favorite Italian restaurant. Because who can be mad while eating pasta, right? I figured it would be a relaxed atmosphere to finally get this conversation rolling. Before dinner, we were having one of those casual chats about our week, and I thought, hey, this is the perfect opportunity to bring up family stuff. So I casually mentioned that I wanted to talk about family later. His response? He seemed totally distracted, like he was on another planet, checking his phone constantly for messages from his mom. It was like I was talking to a brick wall. So, we got to the restaurant, and I waited for a moment when he wasn't glued to his phone to actually bring up the topic. I said I wanted to talk about boundaries with family, especially about his mom's dependence on him. The moment I said that, his whole demeanor shifted. He looked defensive, put his phone down, and you could practically see the walls going up. He said his mom was going through a tough time and needed him, which he thought was normal. I took a deep breath and explained that we needed to prioritize our relationship, especially since we were thinking about marriage. He interrupted me, arguing that I didn't understand his family dynamics. Like, excuse me, I've been living in this circus for over 2 years. I think I know a thing or two about his family. Dinner went on in silence after that. The waiter cleared our plates, and the silence was so thick you could cut it with a knife. After dinner, we walked to our car, and I tried to lighten the mood with some jokes. I mean, what else could I do? He remained distant, though, and I was just feeling so frustrated about our communication. I suggested we talk about it later at home, and he agreed, but it was like pulling teeth to get that out of him. That night, we were watching a movie when his mom called. The call lasted over an hour, and I felt like a ghost in my own apartment because he was so focused on her. After the call, I confronted him about how he had zero attention for us during our time together. He snapped back, saying I was being unreasonable and didn't appreciate his family. We got into this huge argument about his priorities, and he left the room. The next day, his sister called him to discuss an upcoming family gathering. I overheard parts of the conversation, and it included plans for a family trip. I just felt so left out of everything. Later that week, I attended a family dinner where his mom and sister were present. During dinner, his sister made jokes about our relationship that made me feel uncomfortable. I tried to contribute to the conversation, but they brushed me off and focused on their family stories. It was like I wasn't even there. After dinner, I pulled my boyfriend aside and asked for a moment to talk. We stepped outside, and he responded by saying I was overreacting and that family meant everything to him. The argument escalated, and he accused me of trying to separate him from his family. It felt like I was fighting a losing battle here. The following weekend, he invited me to his family's Christmas celebration. I hesitated, but agreed, wanting to show support despite the tension. During the celebration, his mom insisted on taking photos together, which made me uncomfortable. His sister made a comment about how he always puts family first, and that stung. Afterward, I found myself sitting away from everyone, feeling so isolated. As the night went on, I overheard a conversation about a family vacation planned for next summer. My boyfriend mentioned wanting to go, and I felt like I had been punched in the gut. After the gathering, I reached out to him, asking for a serious conversation about our future. He agreed, and we met at a local cafe where the tension from the holidays still lingered. The meeting ended with an agreement to take time to think about what we truly wanted. However, his sister called later that week, inviting him for a weekend getaway. He accepted without consulting me, and I just felt so defeated. I realized this dynamic was not just a simple issue, it was a deeper conflict about our priorities. I was really questioning if I could handle living in this chaos for the rest of my life. To answer a few questions, I have met his family multiple times during holidays and special events. Initially, I thought their close bond was endearing, but over time, it became challenging for me. I express my concerns to my boyfriend regularly, but he struggles to see things from my perspective. Am I the idiot for leaving my boyfriend after he gave away my jewelry as a joke? Hi, I'm 23-year-old female living with my boyfriend, who is 26-year-old male. We've been dating for a year, and we've had many fun moments together. Right at the beginning, we felt as if we were really meant to be, thus the moving in and having 5 pets together. He's someone who will drive me places, share the chores, he does most of the cleaning, I do all of the cooking, we split bills, and is usually physically affectionate, kisses, hugs, etc. I would be lying if I said he didn't have any good sides to him. But lately, I've been seeing more and more moments where he suddenly flips into a completely different person, and it scares me to see how cold he can become to me. Let me list a few incidents so you can judge if I was overreacting or if he was truly mean. 1. Refusing to walk. I found out recently that my brother-in-law, who I'm very close to, was diagnosed with cancer. I was heartbroken, and I needed a walk in the park to clear my mind. I asked him to come with me. For context, I'm an international student. I literally have no one else in this country but him, and I couldn't go to anyone else for help. He's a gym enthusiast, but he's very against walking and has always complained when we hung out somewhere we had to walk a lot. On that day, understanding his dislike for this activity, I pleaded with him to make an exception as I really needed his emotional support. He snapped at me, told me to deal with it myself, and started playing video games. I left the house crying, and about 2 hours later, he called, explaining that he never understood having sick family members and that he didn't believe my reaction to my brother-in-law's news was warranted. 2. Refusing to cook. I got a fever and couldn't cook. Normally, he buys the groceries and I cook, but many times I buy groceries and take out since he's not the most financially well off. This time, my parents came over and they stocked our fridge to the brim to make sure I was well fed. Then I got sick after they left the country, and I asked my boyfriend to help me cook dinner for the both of us. All the ingredients were bought by my parents and were available in the fridge, and he said no. He didn't say anything until 8 p.m. when I said, "I haven't ordered food." He told me to order my own food, and he stayed outside eating potato chips and watching YouTube the entire time I was sick in bed. Apparently, he had run out of money on his card and thus couldn't buy me food, but all the food in the fridge was there. I ended up hungry that night while being sick, and of course, I didn't have the chips that he finished. 3. The hobby incident. He tells everyone that his hobby is drawing, and he used to draw a lot, but it has been over a year since he stopped and just plays video games every day instead. He still has paid commissions unfinished and always gets prickly when I ask him about his drawings. Recently, he's been wanting to do automated YouTube videos and hire artists to draw for his videos, but he's strapped for cash. I told him he has the talent to draw himself and that it would be a nice time to pick the hobby back up. He said, "Drawing is not my hobby," and when I asked why he tells everyone that it is, he got mad. We were at the shopping mall. He left me alone and went elsewhere. Then when we reconvened to wait for his car wash, half of which I paid for, he spent the next 30 minutes berating me publicly at a bookstore, where I embarrassingly cried while everyone stared. He believed that me talking about drawing meant I was discouraging him from playing video games, and that to him, I implied I think he doesn't try hard enough at work. Here's the part that confuses me so much. It seems that if I don't touch on things like walking, cooking, or drawing, we seem to be getting along fine. There were arguments about him not wanting to open my car door because it made him feel disrespected and like a servant, but I've accepted those as his preferences and moved on. He's usually saying things like, "I feel so bad for you. You're so small and fragile. I must protect you." But then he acts like he doesn't care in the moments when I'm sick or upset. I hope everyone understands my concern. I'm alone in this country, and I have nowhere else to go. We're currently sharing an apartment, and I must really be sure of my judgment before making a decision. I also want an objective viewpoint to see if I'm making too big a deal out of something that others would find minor or not red flag worthy. We still had fun and loving moments together, but I can't shake the feeling like these incidents shouldn't be ignored, like they're a sign that he actually doesn't really have compassion for me and just enjoys having a roommate that cooks and sleeps with him. Please give me your honest opinions and advice. Thank you so much. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. When you guys argue, do you stand up for yourself, or does he just steamroll the argument and make you feel like you aren't allowed to be right? It sounds to me like this guy needs a reality check. When you're upset about something he's done, tell him how you feel and stand your ground. Don't let him flip the fault on you. Him berating you publicly, not taking care of you emotionally or physically when you're sick or distressed, and being upset that you're trying to help motivate him screams immaturity to me. I think you need to have a long conversation about what your needs are when you're struggling. Him showing you love by cooking for you, bringing you medicine, making sure you're okay, or just going on a walk when you're distressed should be a top priority. If he can't make small sacrifices like that, get out now. It sounds like he enjoys your company and the affection from the relationship, but is unwilling to sacrifice any of his personal time or effort to help when you're struggling. Major red flag. Comment 2. Thank you so much for your advice. The thing is, we always talk things out afterwards, and he always apologizes for being mean. I always take the time to explain how he has hurt me, and he always ends up taking the blame and becomes sweet again. But the thing is, I don't know if he's doing that because it's easy, because it's beneficial for him to stay with me right now, or if it's because he actually sees his fault and can improve in the future. The day he berated me, he said he felt so bad seeing me look so small alone in the shopping mall. But he didn't come to say sorry. Not until after he had already berated me. I had already cried, we had already gone home, and while I was changing, he came to my room to say he didn't mean the things he said, and he's sorry. I have a really hard time figuring out whether these incidents are just little blips where his immaturity shows, but he is able to grow. Or if this is more of a get out now, he doesn't care for you and is just pretending type of situation, you know. Now, for the update. A few months have passed since I asked for advice about my boyfriend, and honestly, the relationship feels more strained than ever. I wish I could say that I was overreacting or being too sensitive, but things have only gotten worse after I posted. My brother-in-law's health got worse, so our family has been trying to support my sister. That meant a lot of dinners and gatherings at my parents' house. At one of those dinners, my parents praised my cooking, and my boyfriend, who was sitting across the table, rolled his eyes and muttered that it was just basic. I was so embarrassed that I just stared at my plate. After dinner, he sulked in the corner, barely engaging with anyone. My sister mentioned how they were planning a surprise party for my brother-in-law's birthday, and my boyfriend scoffed at the idea, saying it was a waste of time and money. I didn't want to argue, so I just nodded along. The day of the surprise party came, and I worked really hard to decorate the house. My boyfriend didn't help at all. Instead, he chose to play video games in another room. Guests arrived, and my brother-in-law was genuinely surprised and happy. My boyfriend finally came out, but only to complain about the noise. I noticed my brother-in-law's face fall slightly when he heard my boyfriend. I tried to steer the conversation back to my brother-in-law, but my boyfriend interrupted and started a rant about party games. My mom tried to lighten the mood with a toast, but my boyfriend sarcastically commented that everyone just wanted cake. The tension in the room was so strong that I could feel my heart race. After the party, I confronted my boyfriend about his behavior. He dismissed my concerns, saying he was just being honest and that everyone else was too sensitive. The following weekend, I decided to visit my brother-in-law at the hospital, wanting to be supportive. I invited my boyfriend, but he refused, claiming he had better things to do. I went to the hospital alone, and while it was difficult to see my brother-in-law in such a state, I found comfort in the company of my family. When I got home, I found my boyfriend in a bad mood, complaining about my absence. The next week, he planned a weekend trip with friends, leaving me behind without any discussion. I was pretty upset about it, but I decided to take the pets for a weekend getaway to a pet-friendly cabin as a break from everything. While I was away, I got a text from my boyfriend asking for a favor to pick up something for him. I said sure, thinking it would be a nice way to ease some of the tension. But when I got back home, I found my boyfriend had thrown a small gathering with friends. He greeted me with indifference, focusing on his guests instead of acknowledging my presence. It was kind of rude, but I tried to be cool about it. But then I noticed one of the guests wearing a new piece of jewelry I recognized as my own. I confronted the guest, who sheepishly admitted my boyfriend had given it to her as a gift. I was shocked. My boyfriend laughed it off, claiming it was a joke and that he had borrowed it without asking. I was furious. I called him out, stating it wasn't funny and that he had crossed a line. He just shrugged it off, insisting I was overreacting. As the night went on, I decided to leave, packing my things quietly. The next morning, I sent a message to my boyfriend, telling him I was staying with my family for a while. He responded with a series of angry texts, each more accusatory than the last. I just couldn't do it anymore, so I blocked him on my phone and social media. A week later, I got a call from my brother-in-law, who wanted to speak privately. He revealed that he had been keeping tabs on my boyfriend and noticed odd behavior. Apparently, he also had some screenshots of my boyfriend being a jerk. I was so relieved to know I wasn't overreacting. I gathered evidence of my boyfriend's disrespectful behavior over time. I compiled the messages, photos, and incidents into a timeline. Finally, I sent a detailed email to him, listing everything and stating it was over. I immediately felt a weight lifted off my shoulders after hitting send. I don't know what's next, but I do know that I deserve better. Edit. Some of the comments prompted me to clarify a few things. My boyfriend is from the same country as me, but moved to another country for work. I moved in with him for convenience, as my work was also there. I decided to leave the pets with him because they are more comfortable at home and I can visit often. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.